Well, Kuzampla, and welcome to yet another episode of the Bhutan This Week, our weekly news magazine program. My name is Chiku. First, the top stories of this week. Agriculture Minister calls for Bhutanese to focus on growing onions locally and explore alternatives as India bans export of the bulb. 2 Desubs are airlifted to India for treatment after being run over by a vehicle. And Lunana, a yak in the classroom, becomes second Bhutanese movie to get accepted to compete for nominations at the Oscars. And now the details. As India bans export of all varieties of onion except those cut, sliced, or in powder, the government is yet to consider entering into a dialogue regarding the matter with its Indian counterparts. Instead, the Agriculture and Forest Minister is calling for people to focus on growing the bulb locally and explore alternatives. The news comes at a time when many Bhutanese are reeling from the shortage of onion in the market since recently.
Minister Yushipenjo said Bhutanese will have to replace bulb onions from India with locally available products. According to sources, truckloads of onions returned to India after reaching the Indian checkpoints next to Samti and Samdrujonkar today. At the same time, the government is working on attaining self-sufficiency in terms of chilies, tomatoes and onions. As part of the winter cropping in southern districts and warmer places in central and eastern Bhutan, the ministry has made farming of these kitchen staple compulsory.
the lamenza de sugo hibda de ngada chishido zumbe di mebalu ngachi de shinigi dung hamen babala da dim de sumazawa ba ngachi gi shigo zamasuba lunigi nyangha men bala da ane zumbe ba dolo de da disudi ngachi na me same ge chetabe digu zorim tendigi be de jungda jungi bana sunre nangop je meje seshinela gopba wachi gopki sama de nyamalara chagoptu dunchugoptu damagopse ansudu seshinela da ane bendigi ngachi inji minchira the inkena bachin the bulb onion salabimala da ngachima chagal thembigi goptira tirazagop dugase ania thujanangop du seshinela.
The ministry hopes to produce sufficient onions and tomatoes for domestic consumption by end of 2021. As per the Indian media reports, anticipating a shortfall in the domestic market and increasing prices, the Indian government prohibited export of onions. The shortage is seasonal and is expected to continue until the new crop hits the market in November. Meanwhile, prices of onions and tomatoes in the country saw a sharp spike after the Food Corporation of Bhutan resumed its import a week ago. The Office of Consumer Protection even fined around 21 vegetable sellers for charging more than fixed retail prices for the products. As per the model price, the Agriculture and Forest Ministry fixed on 12th September, a kilogram of tomato and onion in Thimphu is 122 Newton and 66 Newton respectively.
Note that the vegetable vendors who are supposed to sell at the retail price, which is 60 Newton for onion and 106 for tomato, they were selling as high as 150 Newton. And then we also investigated the distributor who are, there are 3 distributors who are identified by Agriculture Ministry to distribute to the retailer at the wholesale prices. But we found out that they have also engaged in the retail business.
The FCB said since onions and tomatoes are currently imported from Samti and Gelefu, the retail price is likely to increase.
The Gonsi take a hip the Dajibukumpa, Jagagamna, Yasing Yasunula, Kasemwachi Goto Dangba, Bemi the Daregi Pana Bodolo, Pebochi, Lambenda Zumbe watching, Kungi Palora Kasem lockdown Joe Beshile, Danigi Shule, Lambenda Tiruchanga Dici, the Kumpa, Jagagamna, the Yasing Jodi Sessionil. Neither Dobe. Gobgi take a hip the Tirusum the Nagi Banalo Yasing Jodi Dula, Tanibo the Nagi Pa Dita Bebodolo, De Drew, Nambale, Trutiru, Reni, Betsi Yasing Jonisum Chidu, Sukongi Bale, the development sessionil.
Since 8th September, the FCBL imported around 31.47 metric tons of tomatoes and 144.79 metric tons of onions. Zengi Chuzum for BBS News.
Fuel consumption in the country during the lockdown saw a drastic drop. According to the Economic Affairs Minister, the consumption was just about 20% of the daily average consumption. It was mainly due to vehicle restrictions.
Fuel is one of the top commodities imported in the country. Every year, around 8 billion yuan is spent on fuel. According to the Economic Affairs Minister, the country consumes on an average around 90 kiloliters of petrol and 342 kiloliters of diesel daily. However, with no movement of vehicles except for those on duty, fuel consumption dropped during the lockdown period.
342 dechi sumja shipchu jechi dechi nimchina use lalen thamidi the lockdown gina bewachin ipchinga angapchunga.
Earlier 342 kiloliters were used daily, but during the lockdown only 54 kiloliters were used. And even in terms of petrol consumption, from 90 kiloliters daily, it has dropped to 20 kiloliters.
The lockdown gidina kechi dechile mabe sheshunila.
In terms of money, around 17 million yuan was saved from the fuel.
Dina save se ma pa import dangachi gi nangjin demchi be mangoba ila da gari use mabewa.
When it comes to saving fuel due to lockdown, it is not something that we can be proud of. Fuel consumption was saved, but vehicles including trucks could not ply, which has impacted the economy.
Da peljor gi dina netang tab dau bawachin dile daro dile tab ma deya yu sheshunila.
Meanwhile, a new fuel depot is expected to be constructed in Mongar for the eastern part of the country. Sringzam, BBS News.
The United Nations in Bhutan committed more than $120 million in grants to the country through the 2019 to 2023 Sustainable Development Strategy. The grant will be used in strengthening data, social services, governance and climate action, and disaster risk reduction. This was highlighted during the recent launch of the Annual Results Report 2019.
The UN's work is focused on enhancing access to and use of reliable and timely data for inclusive and evidence-based policy and decision-making. It also includes helping vulnerable groups to have access to and receive quality health nutrition, protection, education, water, sanitation, and hygiene services. Climate change and disaster risk reduction are also one of the areas of partnership.
We're always trying to focus on helping the most vulnerable. We're always trying to focus on capacity building for the CSOs and also capacity building for our great partners in the media.
Highlighting their achievements, he said more than 800 children with disabilities went to school. Women and Child Protection Unit services in 14 districts benefited nearly 400 children. Sanitary pads were distributed in 105 remote schools, among others.
Some of the key highlights that the United Nations has achieved during the year was we were listening very closely on accountability from the Royal Government of Bhutan. And we did that in producing this results report. We are showing that we are focusing on the most vulnerable in this country. But I also want to take the opportunity to thank the Royal Government of Bhutan, the 10 ministries, and especially Gross National Happiness for all their great support.
Support like this will go a long way in mitigating the social and economic impacts of the pandemic. Pema Saldun Sring, BBS News.
The vendors of Centenary Farmers Market in Thimphu have written to the Prime Minister with a host of issues for consideration. They shared concerns related to their business prospects after the Tromde moved them to different zones. The vendors were relocated for safety reasons in view of the current pandemic.
In the letter submitted to the Prime Minister's office yesterday, the vendors are requesting to return to the CFM for business once the COVID-19 situation improves. They are also claiming that they were relocated without any prior information or consultation. Some 250 vendors signed the letter.
미질론칭이란 비로 톰지기란 비로 가지란 비로야 지자 미슬로 고치도 미고고 하실라 따따 마두디 내제 나네기 다 dum나치 미지 dum나치 파당 수치지 작업에 나 스스럼가로 dum나치 작업 홈통 미망랑 몸에 자 내질 톱 야소버진 남스미 절tab지 존념메스미 지기 설제티 공기당 미고고 하실라
서지바세기 람고비 내딘가 지나세 나로 남지 디오게돌라 게돌로 나기 hin상사 슈니기 민돌라 야래 hin상사지 나마친데 팔로 슈스베나 다 니베심데다 또 내가 지기 깝지로 딜레데 소샤베 데베 다 메로와친데 같이 저숑라 아니면 다 슈베데 록슈네데 이슈메 hin상 조심데데 같이 총보데스 록데 나루다 원이 집에 같이 삼려디 생각 다 날레데 통하나로 줘다로데 같이 다또 아니 점무좀로 야 미텔라 구제받는 밑에 안성기 내땅로다 마빠라 아니기 땀마디와 안가치데 딜레티데 테모 헤메스시나
가랑 디날틴 자고발라 디날틴 아니 미스 냠숑 가라 나유라 아니 베닐 텐데 다 마치기 내암기 놀래 입티치 임데스 녹섬 타일라 때 데메메스 슈일라 때 인지 미치라 자르 바자르 타메라 땅니기 처시메 나기미두스데 때 마팔라 나미수 다 싱가라 지니 스미기 로주메 딜레텐데 마치기 다토나 슈구음네도 쪼르 디 이스 쇼돌라 같이모 서진 설지 바자르디 데 랑샤로 예바친 어차 랑샵저랑 데 슈니기 데 삼샤 디세 데미 랑상기 삼바메라.
According to the Office of the Prime Minister, the letter is forwarded to the concerned officials for review. On the other hand, Thimpu Thompe Kilidoji said the vendors were informed about the relocation before the lucky draw for zones distribution during the weekend. The vendors will start operating from the designated zones within 2 months' time. For those designated in the 2 multi-level car parking, business will resume from this week. For now, all the unsold stocks of the vendors are at the CFM. The Thompe also said the CFM will be closed permanently to decongest crowd and traffic in the area. In its place, around 10 mini markets will be opened in various zones. Tringzam, BBS News.
2 Desups who were severely injured in an accident on Tuesday last week while on patrol duty were evacuated to India for specialized treatment on Wednesday. Upon receiving royal command for the evacuation, the government requested the Indian embassy for help to expedite the process. The embassy worked overnight to make the evacuation process possible at the earliest hour. His Majesty the King personally visited the emergency room to receive update on the condition of the 2 Desups and once again the next day accompanied by Her Majesty the Gelson. The Prime Minister and the Health Minister were also at the hospital.
The 2 women aged 25 years and 33 years were run over by a driverless vehicle when they were crossing the road at Babisa. They were taken to the National Referral Hospital for treatment. According to the JDW-NRH, the 25-year-old woman suffered multiple injuries to her body parts and organ system, while the 33-year-old suffered minor injuries including injuries to her lung. The 25-year-old is an employee of Drukthimzo and the 33-year-old is a tourist guide. It was reported that the Tata Hilux single-cabin vehicle, which ran over the 2 women, had been parked above the Babisa Old BOB area and the driver had gone to a shop nearby. It was found that the driver also had a few drinks. The vehicle had been parked with a stone underneath the wheels as the car brakes were not working. After coming back, the driver started the car and removed the stone, after which the vehicle rolled down, running over the 2 victims. The vehicle travelled around 102 feet and also hit vehicles parked outside one of the buildings. Samtin Dolkar, BBS News.
A 29-year-old driver from Tsorang died in an accident on 13 September along the Tingtibi-Tongsa highway in Jemga. The truck he was driving veered off the road and fell about 100 meters below the road. The deceased was alone and on his way back to Nganglam from Wondefodrang after transporting cement. The cause of accident is not known. He is survived by his wife and 2 children. The Health Minister says that all people, young and old, except for children under the age of 5, should use face masks when they go out. This, she says, is also as per the standards of the World Health Organization. Parents are, however, advised not to take their infants and children in the crowd because of the risk.
All people currently under all circumstances and at all places are required to wear masks while going out. Taking into consideration the feasibility and discomfort, the health minister said it can be an exception for children below 5 years of age.
때로 잠링기 개척 두수기 순도 좀 봐친 디다다 오뱅 아차라 개캅기 디지디 아차라 소일 행카기 디지디 봐친 아차라 알룽가 롱알레 마탑 봐친 데카레 부몽고 시슈닐라 데볼루 팜루 겐쿠 봉치 예라 알루롱가 디 좀조루루 베시기 사고나 라미바친 남마춘 세슈닐라 라루 알루메케 박 바잘레마 아니베 셰미 둘라 The
health minister, however, says public should also ensure that masks are worn correctly.
Karedi tete ya pshawake tete monkey pu tete namjo gulema chan bewachinte magyumda gyumchora chi se shunila dilu pemba kane mi se shuni taane bodalu karedi kate tatachi sultembe lalen tapna se shunila kare pu dalalugi kacham chipu hapadi yale tun be shabmela ta deveze mada se shunila.
Compliance with other measures including physical distancing, hand hygiene, respiratory etiquette, and adequate ventilation in indoor settings is also considered essential for reducing the spread of the virus that causes COVID-19. Samtan Dolkar, BBS News.
Identifying tobacco outlets in various zones in Thimphu did not help decongest the duty-free limited tobacco outlet at Chubachu. People continue to crowd the place, and long queues of customers outside is a common scene every morning, as the reporter Sringdendub observes.
Post-lockdown, close to 1,000 people line up every morning outside the Chubachu tobacco outlet. Many come and wait from as early as 4 a.m. So, to manage the crowd in the wake of the coronavirus pandemic, Bhutan Duty Free Limited designated outlets in the 5 zones of Babisa, Chanzamto, Mutithang, Olakha and Taba. However, it did little in restricting customers at the main outlet.
We distributed tobacco products in the zones in Thimphu last week, and just like here, even at the zone outlets, people are seen crowding and not following the COVID-19 safety protocols. There was no improvement in people's behavior. I think most of them are tobacco retailers and not really consumers because they try to get the products from their zones as well as from here.
In addition to identifying outlets in the town, the Chubachu outlet limited the number of tokens issued in a day to 250. And to avoid hoarding, the quantity of tobacco products per person was also reduced. For now, Bhutan Duty Free Limited discontinued replenishing stocks at the outlets in the zones as it explores other means to deliver the products without having to crowd.
Meanwhile, we are looking at online options to place order and then deliver the products through home delivery services. We want to try and see how it goes. We will also restock the outlets in the zones soon. We request everyone to visit respective outlets and avoid crowding.
Meanwhile, following the ease on movement restrictions, it is learnt that people from nearby districts also visit the tobacco outlets, adding to the problem. Sringdandup, BBS News.
Although the country entered the final phase of unlocking recently with easing of several restrictions and inter-district vehicular movements being allowed, Tserang district has, however, taken no chances. Focusing on safety and minimizing risk of local transmissions of coronavirus, the district has come up with its own internal COVID-19 preventive measures. The protective measures have been submitted to the Southern COVID-19 Task Force in Phuntsling and will be put in place for a period of 21 days.
Being a transit town, hundreds of vehicles ply along the Tsirang-Wangdifoda highway on a daily basis. This puts people in Tsirang at high risk of contracting the virus if an infected traveler enters the district. Moreover, the district also has a high population density. The district has 35 people per square kilometer, increasing the risk of spreading the virus in case there is any local transmission in the district.
Tsirang zongkhakdi sarbangi zongkhakgi chimcha beole tendi te magele.
Tsirang is a neighbor district to Sarbang where there were reports of positive COVID-19 cases. It is our duty to keep Tsirang safe. Moreover, commuters from Sarbang traveling towards Thimphu and nearby districts have to travel from Tsirang. So we had to come up with some internal safety measures in consultation with the government.
Ya dagana wande patra Thimphu jodibero kara sagode ngachigi sagonale jujogoble tendi.
Aimed at safeguarding the residents living in and around Dampu Town and Tsirang as a whole, the safety measures discourage commuters traveling from other districts to enter Dampu Town. Damphu's bus terminal located in the core town area has also been temporarily moved near the highway, and the various entry points leading towards Dampu Town are manned.
Chinalo bewachin te Thimbalama ondibe bero te gerigi gari disu.
Private cars and public transport buses traveling from Thimphu towards Sarbang will now have to take this bypass route without having to visit Dampu Town. We have set up a gate and duty personnel are deployed to inquire commuters entering Dampu Town. Likewise, commuters from Sarbang don't necessarily have to enter Dampu Town unless they have genuine work.
Bypass nalabe thandite junglam dadibe chenigibe tebe zojaise.
To decongest crowds in Dampu Town, the district COVID-19 task force, in consultation with relevant stakeholders, also came up with internal COVID-19 preventive measures for the business community of the town and the district's civil servants.
We decided to open shops in Dampu Town on alternated basis each day. Similarly, we informed the civil servants residing within Dampu Town to drive their cars to work alternatively based on odd and even registration numbers of their cars. The measures are aimed at safety of our residents.
Even number jonibe te nimchi odd number jonibe tengachigi anebe zojai.
Similarly, people living in 12 geoks have to wait for their turns to visit Dampu Town, unlike before.
Tangachigi nalapapa pihunta bewachim pintechugi hunta di geok truyila.
We have 6 geoks in Pungtinchu precinct areas and another 6 geoks on the other side of the geok. For the first 3 days, people from 6 geoks from Pungtinchu area will come to Dampu Town. They will then be restricted for the next 3 days when people from the 6 other geoks visit Dampu Town.
Tele nimsum ki jable mihungi geok trupdi oni pihungi geok trupdi mihunse.
Meanwhile, shopkeepers and hoteliers in Rilangthang have been notified to close their businesses until further notice. Rilangthang serves as a lunching spot for commuters between Sarpang and Thimphu. Hoteliers and shopkeepers in the area have welcomed the move. For Pemasheong in Sarang, Sunampem for BBS News.
At a time when the country is coming to grips with the coronavirus pandemic, news of a Bhutanese movie getting an official acceptance to compete for a nomination at the Oscars as music to Bhutanese ears. Directed by Pao Training Doji, Lunana, a yak in the classroom, will represent Bhutan to compete for nominations at the 93rd Oscars to be held next year. Academy Awards, popularly known as the Oscars, are awards for artistic and technical merit for the film industry and is regarded as the most prestigious award in the entertainment industry.
Lunana, a yak in the classroom, becomes the second Oscar entry from Bhutan since The Cup by Khensi Rinpoche in 1999. Talking to BBS, Pao Choning Doji said, the film has travelled around the world to numerous film festivals ever since the film's world premiere at the London Film Festival last year. And upon receiving good feedback and advice from the festival organisers that the film should be submitted to the Oscars, he was encouraged to do so.
The Academy Awards actually needs the film to be submitted by the government. So I would like to take this opportunity to express my gratitude to the MOIC, Rinpo, the secretary and all the staff who worked on submitting our film officially to the Academy Awards. But I think it's very important for people to remember that we have just been officially accepted by the Academy Awards. It doesn't mean that we have a nomination, but it is the first step in getting a nomination.
Pao Chuning added that now, after being officially accepted, the selection committee will review for a nomination. And he assumes that the obvious nomination would be in the category of Best Foreign Language Film.
Getting an official entry into the Academy Awards, I think, proves Bhutanese films have come a long way. Not only Lunana, but several other films have been making news all around the world in international circuits. And these films are made by Bhutanese, made in Bhutan, and it is telling Bhutanese stories. And the international world is taking notice of these films. So I think it is very, very encouraging.
The movie has won 2 awards at the Palm Springs International Film Festival in California, the Audience Choice Award for Best Feature Film, and the Best of Fest Award. Similarly, it has won the Audience Choice Awards at the Cinemasia Film Festival in Amsterdam in the Netherlands. It had a successful commercial release in Taiwan, where a box office crossed 7 million new Taiwan dollars. And the film also won 3 awards in Italy last week. Commercial releases in countries like Japan, South Korea, China, Switzerland, and France are expected soon. Sunampem for BBS News.
And this brings us to the end of this week's edition of Our News Magazine. Until next time, I'm Cheku, signing off only for now.